Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you've had a good week. So a couple weeks ago I did a gouache painting video where I used a limited color palette, and I asked you guys if you wanted to see a video of me demoing that limited color palette, and the majority of you said yes, you would like to see a video on the ZORN palette, which is the palette I was using in that video. So in this video I'm going to show you guys that palette and talk about how to use it and how I use it in paintings. To start out this video, I am doing a series of swatches of one of the versions of the ZORN palette, which is the version that I normally use. The colors are Alizarin Crimson, Payne's Gray, Yellow Ochre, and Titanium White. And I am adding the straight color and then adding Titanium White to it, and then doing some basic color mixing of each color so you can kind of get an idea of the basic amount of colors that you can make using this palette. I'm doing two different versions of these color swatches. The other version seems to be a pretty common color selection for the ZORN palette as well. It includes either Vermilion or Crimson or Cad Red, Yellow Ochre, a Black, and a Titanium White as well. For the second set of swatches, I decided to use a Cadmium Red because that's what I had on hand and I don't have a Vermilion or anything. So I'm using Ivory Black, Cadmium Red, Yellow Ochre, and Titanium White. All the colors that I've just mentioned, which there's like 8 of them or whatever, I'll list down below so you can go and check that out in the video description if you're curious. I just wanted to show another variation besides the standard one that I use, that I was trained to use. So you can kind of get an idea of the amount of colors that you can mix using just 4 simple paint colors. And as I said, this is about the lowest amount of colors I could have fit in a swatch. I guess a swatch card like this. I could have done 100 tiles of different colors in this palette that I could have made, but these take a long time to make. I think it took me about 2 hours to do both of these together, so about an hour for each one. And I just didn't want to do 100 of each one because that would have been a little excessive. So here is a shot of both of them together so you can kind of compare them. The one with the Alizarin Crimson is a bit deeper and the colors are a bit richer, and the one with the Cadmium Red, the colors tend to be a bit brighter. So now I'm going to be doing a little paint demo, and this is also me doing a couple more color swatches of just random colors that I was mixing. I wanted to be able to show my palette as well, but I'm not a big fan of the dual camera because I find it kind of distracting, so I'm just mixing colors using the palette that I like to use, which has the Alizarin Crimson in it as opposed to the Cadmium Red. But this is just a little example of some more of the colors that you can mix with the 4 basic colors. And then I go in and start doing a little tiny painting demo using the colors that I like to use. So I guess I'll give a tiny, really super brief history of what the ZORN palette actually is. The ZORN palette was a palette used by an artist called Anders Zorn. He was a Swedish painter, and it is said that he worked in a very limited color palette of a white, a ochre, a red, and a black, which was vermilion and a version of ivory black, yellow ochre, and I think it was flake white, which is a lead white, and they don't use it anymore. It's been replaced with titanium white. You can look him up on the internet and see a lot of his paintings, and you can definitely see a very harmonious color palette that he used for all of his paintings. It's pretty interesting if you are curious to see what actually painting with this palette looks like. I think the thing that I enjoy most about this palette is how easy it is to mix skin tones. I learned to use this palette in a landscape painting class, and at first I was really hesitant to even want to learn to use it because I'm like, I can't get the variety of color that I want with only 4 colors, but I found that I had a harder time with 20 colors than I did with just these 4. So I think it's a really great palette if you're learning to mix color, to give it a try and see if you like it. Obviously, having a basic knowledge of color theory and how to mix colors is going to be essential for using a color palette like this. What I would recommend, especially for a beginner who wants to try out this palette, I would say get yourself a color wheel or a color chart where you can see how the basic primaries are mixed together, and then you can substitute those primary colors with the colors from the ZORN palette. So a primary blue, whatever that would be replaced by the in this case the Payne's Gray, the red would be replaced by the Alizarin Crimson, the yellow ochre would replace the yellow, and then the white would be used to add tonal value to the colors that you're using. And then since you have a color chart in front of you, you can kind of figure out on your own how to mix a specific color. So if you wanted to mix a green, you won't be able to get a bright, vibrant green like the one that would be on a primary color chart, obviously. But if you were to mix the Payne's Gray and the yellow ochre together and add some white if you wanted a lighter color, obviously, you would get a darker olive green color, which would work well for landscape paintings. It looks really nice. And if you wanted, say, an orange, you could mix your alizarin crimson and your yellow and white together to get some variation of orange. I've mixed oranges for this little demo piece that I'm doing right now. And then if you wanted to deepen some of those colors or desaturate them further, you could add their complementary color, or you could add some of the Payne's Gray to deepen down the colors and make them a little bit darker or more desaturated if that's what you're going for. Another thing to keep in mind when you're using this palette is the color temperature and the temperature shift that you can achieve when placing certain colors next to each other. So if you have a skin tone, which is what I've done in this painting kind of to show you guys what that looks like, I have a skin tone down and then I put my lightened Payne's Gray, lightened with the titanium white, down so it makes putting the blue next to a skin tone or a red will make the blue look bluer. That's what the temperature shift is. That's kind of going into more color theory, which is a little bit more complex to have to explain, but I thought I would show it in this video anyway, even though it's a little bit complex. So if I were to put a red next to a green mixture that I had made, it would make the green look more green, which, as you can see, I have the red flowers next to green, and it makes the green more vividly green than it actually would be if that red was not there. I would recommend, if you are considering using this palette, to just grab some cheap paint of these colors and just start messing around with it. That's really the only way you're going to learn to mix the colors that you can make in this palette, is by actually doing it. Just like learning to mix paint with any kind of color palette you're using, you have to actually mix them. And that looks like all I have time for. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give me a like, it really helps my channel grow, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next week for another video. Bye!